What's up, installers? It's your boy JP the Install Guy here, hoping to make your install life a whole lot easier. Today we're going to go over some things that you can check if your aftermarket radio is not working properly. So if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing or following if you're into anything dealing with car audio installations, product reviews, and how-to tutorials. Alright, so now we're about to talk about why your aftermarket car stereo is not turning on. This right here is an aftermarket car stereo harness specifically for this Kenwood, and it has 3 power wires in it, a black, a yellow, and a red. The black one needs to go to ground. That's going to be any chassis ground that you may ground out individually, or if you use the aftermarket wire harness as ground, this is going to be your negative. Next, you're going to have the yellow wire. The yellow wire is going to be your 12-volt constant, or the memory wire. This needs to receive 12 volts 24/7. So whether the car is on or the car is off, this needs to have 12 volts on it. But even though these two actually power the radio, this is the wire that actually turns the radio on. This is your accessory or ignition or switch power. This needs to receive 0 volts when the car is off and 12 volts when the car is on. So as long as these 3 wires are getting what they're supposed to get, then there's no reason why your radio shouldn't be coming on. But before you take the radio out and I show you how to test for power with your multimeter, first thing you might want to do is check your fuses. If you don't know where your fuse box is, then the easiest thing is for you to actually look inside your owner's manual. They usually have something up under the hood, and you may have an interior panel, whether it's on the side of the dash or up under the dash on the driver's side. But you want to check that first, and you usually want to look for stuff that pertains to your radio. You may see one that says radio, or is abbreviated RDO. You may see one that says stereo or audio or amplifier or ignition or accessory, something along those lines that may stop this radio from cutting on if that fuse is blown. So the best way to test to see if you have a blown fuse is to change your multimeter to DC voltage. Take your black probe, put it to negative, take your red probe and probe both sides of the fuse and make sure you get 12 volts on each side. If you're checking for 12 volt constant and you get 0 on one side and 12 volts on the other side, then that one's going to be blown. If you're checking for ignition, then you want to make sure you turn the car on and check both sides of the fuse to make sure that both of those read 12 volts with the car on, and when you turn the car off, they both should read 0. So now that you've checked all the fuses inside the car, now we can take the radio out and check the fuse on the back of the radio. You want to make sure that this one's not blown either, because you be having power coming towards this harness, but if this fuse is blown, then it's not going to receive any power on the inside of that circuit board. Now, when it comes to checking power on the aftermarket radio, I like to probe right behind the radio because I need to see what my radio is seeing or not seeing. Sometimes the test leads that you have may be a little too thick to kind of fit inside there, and these two touch, then we're going to pop something. So we don't want to do that. What I usually do is back probe the radio, stick this one inside the ground, and then stick this one inside the constant. I like checking my constant first because I don't have to turn the car on. This is usually my first connection. This also solidifies that my ground is good. If I'm testing for power behind the radio and I don't get any voltage, but if I remove that black probe and touch it to a piece of bare metal inside the vehicle and I still get 12 volts with this touching on the yellow, then that lets me know that the ground that I'm using is not a good ground. It can also come from you not checking to see if there was a ground on the other side of your factory harness. A lot of the Nissan wire harnesses, like the 7552, has a black wire, but there's a note on the black wire that says for Subaru only. So you may plug that wire in and you hook that black wire up, but there's no black wire on the other side of that factory harness that's actually going to a factory ground. So instead of cutting the ground wire off of your aftermarket car stereo, because it's usually longer than the other wires, you need to ground that somewhere inside the vehicle itself. Or getting voltage on the black and the yellow, so that lets me know that that's not the issue. So next thing I want to do is keep my black probed inside the ground because I can continue to use it, and then I want to test what's going on with my ignition. So as of right now, technically the car is turned off, so we're reading 0 volts. But if I turn the car on and we're still receiving 0 volts, that's going to be a problem. The main problem I see with this not receiving 12 volts, even though all your fuses is good, is that you may have bought the wrong harness. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. You go into the store and you say, hey, that wire harness is way too expensive because it's over $100. Let me get the one that fits the same plug of my car and it's only $16. But one of the main reasons that you need to buy that expensive harness is because You have what's called a data radio or a CAN bus radio, which basically means that there's a data signal that turns on your factory radio. When you take your factory radio out, there's nothing that's going to communicate this aftermarket radio to your factory computer inside the car. So that module, which is why it's so expensive, is what's going to output a 12-volt ignition to go to this wire. And this is going to go for Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, GMC, Chevy, Pontiac, Buick, Cadillac, anything that's GM made yet. Now let's just say you did buy that module, but you still not receiving 12 volts on this wire. Then you want to make sure that you need to check the power at the module to make sure that that module is outputting 12 volts like it's supposed to. There's been quite a few times where we had to pull the module out, update the module, plug it back in, and then the radio outputs like it's supposed to. There's been times where the module was bad and we had to swap it out, and now it's outputting 12 volts like it's supposed to. So you may have a bad module. But if you don't want to go through all that trouble, you can just bypass it and jump this accessory wire to another accessory inside the vehicle. A lot of people like to use a cigarette lighter or something like that, but as long as you get 0 volts with the car off and 12 volts with the car on, you should be good. But I do advise, if you are going to do that, use a relay. It takes a little bit of current to turn it on, but it can output a lot of current to turn this radio on. And that way you can keep everything safe. But now that our wire has some power on it, now we got our radio to turn on. If you guys like the information so far, throw me a thumbs up. Let me know I'm doing a good job. Now that we went over the power troubleshooting and we got your radio turned on, now we need to figure out why your radio does not have any sound. So first thing I like to do is I like to make sure that our radio is actually outputting sound like it's supposed to. So I'm going to change the source to radio, and it doesn't matter if it's on a station or not, because what we're looking for right now is static. And I want to take one of the speaker wires and hook up this test speaker. Now I just have this old speaker lying around, and I don't really care about polarity right now. I literally just want to hear some static. Now, of course, I will go on each individual channel because there's going to be 4 channels on this. So all of your speaker wires, I would check all of those with that test speaker to make sure that it outputs power like it's supposed to on each individual channel. But if you don't have a test speaker, there's a way you can use your multimeter. We're going to take our meter and we're going to go to AC volts. Then we're going to wrap our probes around our speaker wires, and we want to read the voltage on our multimeter. Now right now it's at 0, so it's not going to give us anything, but let's start turning it up. Once we turn it up, we start to see all the numbers go up on our multimeter. So even though it's static, it's letting us know that we are getting power. Now we are testing for high level outputs, and this is not a high number, but that's because it is just static. If it was music or a test tone, it would be a whole lot louder. As a matter of fact, let's throw this USB in real quick. That's just some music that's playing. I don't really know what it is right now, but as you can see, we have 10 volts. 10 AC volts, and it's 11. Of course, it's going to bounce around because music is dynamic. It's not going to stand still, but you can definitely see that we are up in the high level AC voltage range. Not only can you do that with the high level, but you can do that with the low level as well. What we want to do is take our negative, put it on the shield of our RCA, and we want to take our positive and put it on the inside. Now that we're testing our RCA or our low level signal, you can see that it's giving us the same jump around. So we're definitely getting signal output on our RCA, and we'll do the same thing on all the channels just to make sure that we are actually getting something coming out of those RCAs. Now that we've metered AC volts on both the low level and the high level side of this radio, we know that this radio is doing everything that it's supposed to, so this is not the reason why you're not getting sound. So my first thing I will ask is, do you have a premium sound system inside the vehicle? Basic sound systems and premium sound systems do take 2 totally different wire harnesses. If you have a basic sound system, that means your factory radio is outputting power directly to those speakers. But if you have a premium sound system, that means your factory radio is sending signals to a factory amplifier, whether you see it visible inside the car or not. You may have a factory amp inside that vehicle that's outputting power to those speakers. So First thing we want to make sure is, are you turning your factory amplifier on? There's a blue wire with the white stripe on the back of this radio, and it stands for the remote wire. And if this is not outputting 12 volts to your factory amp, not turning it on, then of course you're not going to get any sound. But if you are sending 12 volts to your factory amp and you still don't receive any sound, then you could either have a bad amplifier or you can have bad speakers. One way to test to see if you have a bad speaker or not is to meter your speaker wires. So you would take your multimeter and go over here to resistance and meter the speakers to see if you get any type of reading like 4 ohms, 2 ohms, or anything like that. Now, if you have a premium sound system inside the vehicle, you won't be able to measure resistance right behind the factory radio because you're going to be testing signal wires. Those aren't wires that's going straight to the speaker. You need to find out where your factory amplifier at and test the speaker wires there, because it may be easier than taking off all 4 door panels and testing each individual speaker by itself. Now, we're not going to cover every single wire color in this video, because not only have I made a video showing you guys how to wire up a stereo, and that will be linked in the description down below, I also finally created the Introduction to Car Audio course Volume 1, and it's all about car stereos. So everything that we've talked about in this video, plus tons of other tips and tricks, is in that course, and we're throwing it on sale for you guys to celebrate us reaching 100,000 subscribers. So that's it for part 1. I gathered a whole bunch of questions on previous videos, and I answered those, and if you have any more questions, put them in this video, and then let's make a part 2. But if you found any type of value in this video, please hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff. That way we can keep this channel growing all the way to the top. And at this time, I'd like to thank anybody who chooses to support the channel, where you guys hit those links and buy all your parts from everything that's in the description, or you go to the website to get the parts for the install that you need to complete, or you get those fan subscriptions from the website or the Patreon. There's that super thanks at the bottom of the video. All that stuff goes a long way with me, and I greatly appreciate it. So till next time, this your boy JP the Install Guy signing out, telling y'all to keep going, keep growing, and have a blessed day. Peace.